And here's what most videos about the conquest never tell you. Rhaenys wasn't decoration. When Aegon went on royal progress, his queens took turns ruling from his seat, and the realm learned what each of them was. It was Rhaenys who heard the case of a man who had beaten his wife to death, and Rhaenys who handed down the judgment the Seven Kingdoms would keep for generations. The rule of 6. A husband might strike his wife 6 blows and no more, one for each of the gods, save the stranger, who is death. A queen who legislated mercy with one hand and rode a horse-swallowing monster with the other. She gave Aegon his heir too, Prince Aenys, born in the 7th year of the new reign. The spiteful whispered the boy was a singer's son, not a dragon's, because Rhaenys loved her musicians so well. The histories carry the slander without believing it. I tell you the slander for one reason only. Remember that Aenys exists, and remember whose son he is. He matters at the end of this story more than you can guess yet. So that's the pairing. The queen the conqueror actually loved, on the 2nd greatest dragon in the world. Now watch what they did to Westeros. Because for 2 years, this dragon was unstoppable. And I mean that in the exact literal way the histories mean it. The conquest taught Westeros 2 lessons in fire. The first came at Harrenhal. Harren the Black had built the strongest castle ever raised in the 7 Kingdoms, and he sat inside it and dared the dragons to come. Balerion came. Stone melts if the fire is hot enough. Harren and every son of his line burned in the tallest tower before midnight, and the lesson went out to every king in Westeros. Your walls are already dead. The Storm King heard that lesson. Argilac Durrandon, Argilac the Arrogant, the last of a line of Storm Kings hundreds of years deep, heard exactly what a castle was now worth, and refused to die like Harren, cooked inside his own stones. So he did the opposite. He marched his whole strength out of Storm's End, into the open, into a howling gale, to meet the invaders in the field like the kings of old. They call that battle the Last Storm. Rhaenys was there. She and Meraxes had flown with Orys Baratheon's host, and the rain fought for Argilac better than his knights did. Wet wind grounding clean flame. It didn't matter. The Storm King's host broke, and Argilac died the way he wanted, sword in hand, cut down by Orys Baratheon himself. What happened next tells you where this new world was heading. Argilac's daughter Argella barred the gates of Storm's End and declared herself Storm Queen, and her own garrison, who had just watched a dragon help decide a battle, delivered her to Orys's camp in chains rather than die for a crown that was already ash. Orys covered her with his own cloak, poured her wine, and in time took her to wife. And House Baratheon carries Argilac's stag and his words to this day. Castles, armies, even loyalty. Every currency of the old Westeros was collapsing against the new one the day that ended the argument. The Field of Fire. 2 kings, Mern of the Reach, Loren of the Rock, massed the largest army the conquest ever faced, and met the one thing the Targaryens never showed anyone before or after. All 3 dragons in the sky over one battlefield at once. It happened exactly once in the whole war. Once was enough. Some 4,000 men burned. House Gardener ended in the ash, Loren knelt, and when word reached the north, Torrhen Stark looked at the numbers and knelt in the snow without a fight. Meraxes was 1/3 of that. Every kingdom that knelt after the Field of Fire knelt to her as much as to Balerion. 6 kingdoms, in the space of about 2 years, bowed to 3 dragons. When the High Septon anointed Aegon at Old Town, his sisters stood beside him, and the histories say it was Rhaenys who had hailed him first, back at the Egon fort. Aegon, king of all Westeros and shield of his people. Mark the words she chose. King of all Westeros. That title was about to run into a desert with other ideas, because the map said 6 kingdoms, not 7. When the ravens went south past the mountains, into the deserts of Dawn, the answer that came back was silence. And Aegon sent his most beloved weapon to collect the 7th kingdom in person. He sent Rhaenys. Remember, as she flies south, that no force on earth had slowed this woman and this dragon down yet. Dawn was about to do it without fighting a single battle. What Rhaenys found over Dawn was a kingdom that had apparently ceased to exist. She crossed the mountains expecting armies. There were none. The Planky Town's orphans poled their boats away into the reeds. The castles she overflew stood shut and half empty. No host assembled to burn. No king rode out to kneel or die. Sand, stone, heat, and nothing for a dragon to do to any of it. You cannot melt a desert. So she flew to the head of the snake, Sunspear, seat of House Nimeros Martell. And there at last, someone came out to meet her. Not a king with an army, but a woman roughly 80 years old, blind, gout-ridden, so far past vanity that her own people called her the Yellow Toad of Dawn. Princess Meria Martell, who had ruled Dawn since before Egan's father was born. The histories preserve their exchange, and it may be the most quietly terrifying conversation in the entire conquest. Meria told the Dragon Queen, "This is Dawn. You are not wanted here. Return at your peril." Rhaenys answered that she would return, with fire and blood, and the old blind woman gave her back the words House Martell still carries to this day. Unbowed, unbent, unbroken. "You may burn us," she said, "but you will not bend us, break us, or make us bow." 2 promises were made in that courtyard. Rhaenys promised to come back with fire and blood. Meria promised Dawn would never kneel. Here is the sentence I need you to carry into the next chapter. Both women kept their word, and only one of them died for it. The 4th year after the conquest, Rhaenys kept her promise. The Targaryens invaded Dawn in strength, armies up the passes, dragons overhead. And on paper, it worked the way everything else had worked. Meraxes burned the Planky Town. Strongholds yielded or emptied. Sunspear itself was taken. Aegon proclaimed Dawn conquered, appointed his men to hold it, and went home to King's Landing to celebrate the completion of the map. Notice what was missing from that victory. A battle. There never was one. And notice the other thing missing. Meria Martell. No Martell knelt. No Martell was captured. The Yellow Toad had melted into her kingdom like water into sand, and waited for the dragons to get bored. The war had already reached out and maimed the king's own circle.